Prof. Teng, it appears that based on the rankings of countries in the Global Food Security Index, the top tier nations are mainly developed economies. What do you make out of this? Why is there such a gap or a divide in terms of the level of food security between developed and developing economies?
There's a lot of research that's been done on this aspect, this particular question. And the data really shows that yes, the higher the average household income is, as let's say measured through GDP per capita, the higher will be its food security. Okay? And this links to the third dimension of food security as defined by the Food and Agriculture Organization, which is economic access to food. Okay? Or in layperson's terms, food affordability. Okay? So the higher the household income, which is the case in most developed countries, industrialized countries, then the higher will be the household food affordability or economic access to food. So that's one of the explanations. The second really is an interesting observation. There's something called Engel's law, named after a German economist, Engel, Engel's law. And Engel's law basically says that as incomes rise, families will spend proportionally lower amounts on food and therefore have higher food security. Okay? In fact, it's a law that's been around for a long time, although most people haven't taken notice of it. Yeah, so very basic economic law. And this then goes to what I said earlier. The higher the household GDP, higher will be its food security. So it's very much linked to income, expenditures. Yeah. Now, the third really is that in today's world, making food available requires supply chains, whether the supply chains are internal or they originate from overseas. Richer economies generally have much better infrastructure and logistic support, okay, and also regulatory systems, which are very important for food movement, whether it's internal or external. Yeah, so therefore, richer countries, industrialized countries, do have an advantage over emerging economies, which don't have the infrastructures in place, the logistical support and so on. In fact, it's a well-known fact, even in ASEAN, some of our less developed ASEAN countries like Myanmar, Laos, and so on, they are notorious for their internal infrastructure and logistics. Okay, you can't even move food, from the highlands to the lowlands, for example, without much rotting. Okay, so that actually has to be addressed itself. Yeah. Now, the only thing is that there's a flip side to this. Okay? The flip side is that even though there could be self-sufficiency in food, because countries produce a lot, it does not mean that self-sufficiency automatically leads to improved household food security. It really doesn't, okay, for all households, because income level comes in. Unless the household is producing its own item, which in most cases is not because of the urbanization phenomenon. Okay, we all know that throughout the ASEAN region and throughout Asia, in fact, we're increasingly becoming an urban society, which means that households don't produce their own food. They rely on others to produce their own food. Yeah, so it comes back to income again. Okay, the economies as they grow have to lift their people up in terms of household incomes, and by lifting household incomes, they're lifting the capacity for households to become more food secure. Okay, so it's both economic and also in some sense, societal, yeah, explanations for this.